My name is Jaylen, and this is my presentation on Joseph Stalin's life. Now, if you look at the picture here, it shows one of Joseph Stalin's quotes. "Death is the solution to all problems. No man, no problems." Here are some facts about Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was born on December 18, 1878 in Gori, Georgia. He was Georgian, not Russian. Stalin, meaning man of steel, was the Russian leader during World War II. Stalin was General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, or the Bolsheviks, from April 3, 1922 until October 16, 1952. Stalin's left arm was shorter than his right. He was unfit for military service because of this. Stalin was a huge fan of American cowboy films. Stalin was married 2 times. The first one died of tuberculosis, and the second one committed suicide. Stalin was one of the most brutal leaders in world history. As you can see, this banner says in Russian, "Raise high the banner of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin." Joseph Stalin was born in December 18, 1970 in Georgia. But Joseph Stalin was not his birth name. At the age of 7, he got smallpox, leaving his face scarred and his left arm slightly deformed. His dad was also an alcoholic and very abusive. Because of these things, he was picked on a lot as a child. In 1902, Stalin was arrested for coordinating a labor strike and was exiled to Siberia, the first of his many arrests and exiles. It was during this time that Joseph adopted the name Stalin, meaning steel in Russian. After escaping from exile, he was marked by the Tsar's secret police as an outlaw and continued his work in hiding, raising money through robberies, kidnappings, and extortion. Stalin stole approximately 250,000 rubles, which is like $3.4 million in the United States. In 1922, Stalin was appointed to the newly created office of General Secretary of the Communist Party called the Bolsheviks. This gave Stalin control over all party members' appointments and consolidated his power so that eventually nearly all members of the Central Command owed their position to him. After Vladimir Lenin's death, who was the leader of the Bolsheviks party, Stalin set out to destroy the old party leadership and take total control. Stalin had almost everyone opposing him or in his way either killed or put in jail. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, Stalin took back the land that the Bolsheviks gave to the peasants, turning them back into serfs. Stalin believed that collectivism would accelerate food production, but the peasants resented losing their land and having to work for the state. Millions were killed in forced labor or starved during the ensuing famine. Stalin had also set in motion rapid industrialization that initially achieved huge success, but over time cost millions of lives and vast damage to the environment. Any type of resistance was met with quick and lethal response. Millions of people were exiled to the labor camps of the Gulag or were executed. As war clouds rose over Europe in 1939, Stalin made a seemingly brilliant move, signing a non-aggressive pact with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. Stalin convinced Hitler's integrity and ignored warnings from his military commanders that Germany was mobilizing armies on its eastern front. When the Nazis struck in June 1941, the Soviet army was so completely unprepared and immediately suffered massive losses. Stalin was so shocked at what Hitler did, he hid in his office for several days. By the time Stalin regained himself, German armies occupied all of Ukraine and Belarus. The purges of 1930s had depleted the Soviet army and government leadership to the point where both were nearly dysfunctional. After heroic efforts on the part of the Soviet army and the Russian people, the Germans were turned back at Stalingrad in 1943. By the next year, the Soviet army was liberating countries in Eastern Europe, even before the Allies had mounted a serious challenge against Hitler at D-Day. As the tide of war slowly turned in the Allies' favor, President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill met with Joseph Stalin to discuss post-war arrangements. At the first of these meetings in Tehran, Iran, in late 1943, the recent victory of Stalingrad put Stalin in a solid bargaining position. He demanded the Allies open a second front against Germany, which they agreed to in the spring of 1944. In February 1945, the three leaders met again in Crimea. With Soviet troops liberating countries in Eastern Europe, Stalin was again in strong position to negotiate virtually free hand in reorganizing their governments. He also agreed to enter the war against Japan once Germany was defeated. The situation changed at the Potsdam Conference in July 1945. Roosevelt died that April and was replaced by President Truman, and the British Parliament elections had replaced Churchill with Clement Attlee. By now, the British and Americans were suspicious of Stalin's intentions and wanted to avoid Soviet involvement in post-war Japan. Stalin then became obsessed with the threat of an invasion from the West after America dropped the 2 bombs on Japan. Between 1945 and 1948, he established communist regimes in many Eastern European countries, creating a vast buffer zone between Western Europe and Mother Russia. Western powers interpreted these actions as proof of Stalin's desire to place Europe under communist control, thus formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to counter Soviet influences. In 1948, Stalin ordered an economic blockade on the communist side of Berlin, Germany, in hopes of gaining full control of the city. Stalin suffered another foreign policy defeated after he encouraged North Korean Communist leader Kim Il-sung to invade South Korea, believing the United States wouldn't interfere. Earlier, he had ordered the Soviet representatives to the United Nations to boycott the Security Council because it refused to accept the newly formed Communist People's Republic of China into the United Nations. Stalin died on March 5, 1953. He left a legacy after his death and terror as he turned a backwards Russia to a world superpower. As you can see here, Stalin had a long life and had some bad decisions in it. Even though he helped the Allies win World War II against Germany, he is still known to this day as one of the most ruthless dictators of all time.